Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive.
Yeah.
This time, we're going to be talking about something that you're probably using every day if you're in the safety industry.
Mm-hmm.
Or, anyone who works with you is probably using every single day.
Right.
Ladders.
Ladders, yeah.
And today, we're going to be looking at a training video from Safety One Source called OSHA 1926.1053.
1926.1053.
Ladders. Subpart X.
Subpart X.
Now
That's a mouthful.
This is a pretty dense set of regulations.
It is.
I mean, we've all seen ladders, right?
Yeah.
Like, how hard can it be?
Right.
But there's a lot to cover here.
There is a lot to cover.
And so we're hoping to break it down for you, give you all the really essential pieces.
The good stuff.
So you can apply it in your work.
Right.
And let's just jump into it.
Let's do it.
So first they talk about general requirements.
Okay.
Right. And this is sort of the foundational stuff that applies to all ladders.
It does.
And it includes, job-made ladders as well.
Okay.
So this is a good starting point, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
The first thing they really emphasize is strength.
Yeah. It all starts with strength.
Now you're thinking like, okay, the ladder needs to be strong.
Uh-huh.
Like, what more is there?
Well,
to say
the nuances of that come in when you think about all the different ways that ladders can be used and all the different stresses they can be put under. So, think about a worker carrying tools up a ladder. Right. And it's a windy day.
Yeah.
Or there's ice buildup.
Oh, yeah.
Or they're using a safety harness.
Okay.
Which puts extra force on the ladder.
Yeah.
So,
So it's not just about...
It's not just about...
body weight.
The person's body weight. It's about all these other potential forces as well.
Right.
So they have to be built to handle a lot more than you might think.
Cool. So what are those requirements then?
So the requirements actually get pretty specific. For example, self-supporting portable ladders have to withstand at least four times the maximum intended load.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
That's a big safety margin.
So if a ladder is rated for 250 pounds, it actually needs to handle.
It actually needs to handle
1,000 pounds of force.
1,000 pounds of force.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
The huge safety margin there.
It is.
Now, is that for all ladders?
No.
Or
it depends.
Is that just self-supporting?
It depends on the type of ladder.
Okay.
So for non-self-supporting ladders, it's a similar concept.
Okay.
But the heavy-duty type 1A, like the metal or fiberglass ladders, they have a slightly lower requirement, which is 3 1/3 times the load. Okay. But still a big safety margin.
Yeah. Okay. So that's self-supporting and non-self-supporting.
Yes.
What about fixed ladders?
Fixed ladders.
How do they test those?
Yeah, those are tested a bit differently because they're subject to different kinds of stresses.
Right.
Right. Think about a fixed ladder on the side of a building.
Yeah.
It could have wind pushing against it.
Okay.
Ice buildup. Have people leaning on it.
Right.
So OSHA actually tests fixed ladders to withstand 250-pound loads concentrated between any two rungs, plus any additional load from those external factors.
So it's like two people standing on any two rungs.
Kind of.
Plus the wind, plus the ice, plus whatever else is happening.
Yeah.
That's pretty intense.
It's a lot.
And what about individual steps?
Each step also has to hold a single 250-pound load right in the middle. Okay. So they're really testing every aspect of that ladder.
Yeah. That's really impressive. Okay, so strength is really important.
Foundational.
Foundational.
Yeah.
But it's not the only.
It's not the only thing they cover. Yeah. They also lay out specific requirements for things like rung spacing, clear distances, and features to prevent slips.
Okay, those are all important too. Let's start with rung spacing.
All right.
This seems
simple enough.
Pretty straightforward.
Right. Yeah, but there's actually a reason behind those specific measurements.
So how far apart?
So rungs have to be spaced between 10 and 14 inches apart. Okay. Center to center. Right. Now, if you think about it, if they're too close together, climbing becomes really awkward and tiring. Right. You're kind of like scrunched up.
Yeah, you're not getting a good stride. Yeah. But if they're too far apart, then you risk overreaching and losing your balance.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So it's like Goldilocks.
It's that Goldilocks zone.
Yeah.
Not too close.
Not too
far apart. Just right. Just right.
Yeah.
For safe and comfortable climbing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So they also mentioned these clear distances.
Right. those clear distance labels.
Like, what is that?
Yeah, those basically ensure that you have enough room to move safely on the ladder.
Okay, so you're not bumping your knees or,
You're not feeling cramped.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
So what are some of the examples of that?
So, for example, on individual rung step ladders, you need at least 16 inches of clear space between the sides and the side rail.
All right, so 16 inches between the rungs and the side rails.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, for all other fixed ladders, there also needs to be at least 16 inches between the rails.
All right.
Portable ladders have a slightly lower requirement of about 11.5 inches between the rails.
Right. So it seems like they're regulating these small...
Yeah, they're regulating even...
little details.
Seemingly minor details, but they all add up.
How much space you have between the rungs and the side rails.
Yeah, it all adds up to a safer work environment.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Okay, now, what about slip-resistant features?
Yeah, slip-resistant features.
What are those?
Those are super important, especially when you're dealing with, wet or slippery conditions.
Right.
So when you think about slip-resistant features, you're probably picturing those textured rungs on metal ladders, right? Those are...
like those little grippy things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're there for a reason. Yeah. So OSHA actually mandates that metal ladders, both fixed and portable, need to have those features.
What kind of features?
Well, it could be corrugation. Knurling dimples, or a skid-resistant coating.
Okay, so
it's all about...
it's all about just making it less slippery.
Minimizing that risk of slipping.
Now, wood ladders don't have that requirement.
That's right.
Is it because wood is naturally grippier?
Wood offers more traction than smooth metal.
Yeah.
But there are rules about coverings on wood ladders.
Okay, like you can't just paint them any color you want.
You can't just slap on any old paint.
Okay.
OSHA actually prohibits opaque coverings on wood ladders.
Okay.
Except for identification or warning labels.
Okay.
And even those can only be on one face of a side rail.
So I'm guessing so you can inspect the wood grain?
That's one reason. To make sure there are no cracks or damage.
Yeah.
But it's also about preserving that natural grip.
Okay.
Because paint could make the wood surface slick.
Yeah. Especially when it's wet.
Especially when it's wet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can't just...
So you got to be careful with wood ladders.
Yeah. You can't just cover them up.
Yeah.
Right. Let's
so they also talk about fastening ladders together.
Right.
Which, you might think.
You might think.
Oh, I've got two ladders.
Yeah.
I need to reach a higher spot. I'll just tie them together.
Yeah, just lash them together.
That's the big deal.
No big deal.
Yeah.
But OSHA says no.
Okay.
You can't do that.
Why?
Unless the ladders are specifically designed for that purpose.
So they're actually designed to be fastened together.
To be fastened together. Because imagine if you just kind of create a makeshift extension.
Right.
And it fails under weight.
Oh, that would be bad.
That would be catastrophic.
Yeah.
So OSHA wants to make sure
that any combined ladder sections are as strong as a single unit.
Okay.
That's designed for that purpose.
So no cutting corners?
No cutting corners.
When it comes to
ladder extensions.
Ladder extensions.
Yeah.
What else is in this section?
Well, there's also a rule about step ladders.
Okay.
Step ladders need to have a metal spreader or locking device to keep those front and back sections open during use.
Oh, so they don't just collapse on you.
Exactly. No wobbling allowed.
No wobbling.
Exactly. One more thing in this section is about splicing side rails.
Okay.
So if you ever need to splice a side rail to achieve a certain length, that resulting rail must be at least as strong as a one-piece rail of the same material.
Right. So again, no cutting corners.
No cutting corners.
If you're splicing, make sure it's
done right.
Done right.
Yep.
Okay. So we've talked about
general requirements.
General requirements.
Length, rung spacing.
Yep.
Clear distances. Slip-resistant features. Fastening ladders together.
Yep.
And step ladders.
It's a lot to cover.
Yeah, and splicing side rails.
Yes.
It's a lot to cover, but that's just...
But that's just the beginning.
The beginning.
Yeah, we're going to get into some more interesting stuff.
Okay.
In the next part.
So let's move on and talk about...
Let's do it.
Elevated work areas.
Okay.
And ladder access.
Elevated work areas and ladder access.
Because this is where things start to get a little
trickier.
Tricky, right?
Yeah.
You've got multiple ladders involved. You're trying to access a rooftop or some other high structure. And this is where OSHA's focus on platforms and offsetting ladders really kicks in to prevent
stuffing fall.
Yeah, those are scary.
Yeah.
All right.
So we'll dive into that in the next part.
Sounds good. So offsetting ladders.
Yeah, offsetting ladders.
What does that even mean? Well, imagine you've got two ladders leading up to an elevated work area.
Right.
Instead of just placing them side by side, you offset them, creating a horizontal distance between the top rungs. And then a platform bridges the gap between the ladders.
So it's like a little stepping stone.
It's like a stepping stone.
Yeah.
So you're not just precariously perched on that top rung.
Yeah.
Trying to make that transition.
You've got something stable to stand on.
Exactly. It minimizes the risk of falling.
Makes sense.
During that transfer.
Okay.
All right. So let's move on from offsetting ladders and talk a little bit about ladder construction and materials.
Okay. So this isn't just about how you use them.
It's not just about how you use them.
But also how they're built.
It's about how they're built.
Yeah.
OSHA has a lot to say about that as well.
Okay. So what are some of the construction requirements? That really stood out to you?
Well, one key point is that ladder components have to be designed to prevent punctures or lacerations.
Well, okay.
So think about a sharp edge on a metal rung that could catch on a worker's hand or snag their clothing.
Right.
OSHA says no.
Yeah.
Those surfaces need to be smooth and snag-free.
It's easy to overlook those things, I think.
Yeah, it's easy to overlook until something goes wrong.
Right, until you have an accident and you're like, why didn't I
should have filed that down.
File that down.
Yeah.
Or why didn't I check that?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. We were talking about wood ladders.
Yes.
You know, having that
natural grip, right?
Mm-hmm.
But to maintain that grip.
OSHA
prohibits.
OSHA says no to
opaque covering. So no slapping on a thick coat of paint.
No thick coats of paint. Unless
it's for identification.
Okay.
Or warning labels.
Okay.
And even those can only be on one side of the side rail.
So it's back to that aesthetics versus functionality thing.
It's always a balance between those two.
Right.
But safety always comes first.
Safety first.
Absolutely.
Okay, now what about metal ladders?
Metal ladders.
Do they have any material requirements?
Yeah, they have their own set of requirements.
Like what?
So while they don't have the no opaque covering rule, they do need those slip-resistant features.
Right. So they need the
knurls,
like corrugation, all of that.
Okay.
So each material kind of comes with its own set of regulations.
It's like they're playing a material-specific chess game.
It's like a chess game.
You know, where they're trying to
think of every possible scenario.
Yeah, make sure that everything is safe.
Absolutely.
What else did you find?
Well, one thing that I thought was really interesting was the regulations on clearances around fixed ladders.
Like how much space you need.
Yeah, how much space you need around the ladder to prevent accidents.
So like a safety bubble.
Yeah, think of it as a safety bubble around the ladder.
Okay, tell me more about that.
So imagine a fixed ladder that's attached to a wall.
Okay.
OSHA is very specific about how far away obstructions need to be, especially in tight spaces.
So like if you've got a ladder going up to an attic or something.
Yeah. You got to make sure there's enough clearance.
Okay, so how much clearance are we talking?
So behind the ladder, there needs to be a minimum of 7 inches. Of clearance between the rungs and any obstruction.
Okay, so you're not.
Yeah, so you're not catching your heel or your foot on something
as you're climbing
up or down.
Okay.
Now, on the climbing side, things get a little bit more stringent.
Okay, how so?
The minimum perpendicular clearance between the center line of the rungs at any obstruction jumps to 30 inches.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's a significant difference.
That's a lot more space.
It is.
Why?
Well, it all comes back
to
that 3-point contact rule.
Right. You want
both hands.
2 hands.
And at least 1 foot.
1 foot.
That's securely on the ladder.
On the ladder at all times.
At all times.
Okay.
So you need that extra space.
You need that extra space.
To maneuver.
To maneuver.
Okay.
Without hitting an obstacle.
All right.
So the climbing side makes sense.
Yeah.
Why it needs...
It needs more.
More space.
Yeah. More clearance.
What if there is an obstruction, though?
Well, if you absolutely can't avoid it...
Okay.
You can reduce that minimum clearance to 24 inches.
24 inches, okay.
But only if you install a deflection device.
Oh, what is a deflection device?
A deflection device.
I'm trying to picture it in my head.
So basically, it's a barrier or a guide that redirects the climber around the obstruction.
So it's like a curved piece of metal or something.
Yeah, think of like a curved piece of metal that acts like a guardrail, guiding you around.
Guiding you around.
That obstacle.
All right.
Without, you know.
Yeah, without having to.
Compromising your grip on the ladder.
Take your hands off the ladder.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's kind of like a...
So it's maintaining that safety bubble.
Yeah.
But with a built-in detour.
A built-in detour. I like that. Okay, so what about the distance you need to step?
Right. There's also regulations.
From a fixed ladder to a landing platform or something.
Yeah.
Like...
How far do you have to reach?
How far do you have to reach?
To get on or off the ladder safely.
Right.
So OSHA calls this the step across distance.
Step across distance. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
And ideally, it should be between 7 and 12 inches.
7 and 12 inches. Okay.
Anything more than that.
Okay.
And you'll need a landing platform.
To bridge the gap.
To bridge the gap.
Okay.
So again, it's all about those transitions.
Yeah.
You know?
No awkward reaching.
No awkward overreaching.
Or anything, yeah.
Or any risky steps.
Right. Okay, so...
there's also a regulation that applies to fixed ladders without cages or wells.
Okay.
And that is the clear width on either side of the ladder.
All right. So
there needs to be at least 15 inches.
Even without?
On each side.
The extra safety features.
Of the center line.
You still need...
Even without those.
Space around the ladder.
Extra safety features.
Okay.
You still need a decent amount of space.
Got it.
Yeah.
All right. So now let's talk about those.
Okay.
Safety features.
Safety features.
You know, cages.
Yes.
Cages.
Wells.
Ladder. Safety devices.
Uh-huh.
Self-retracting lifelines.
Self-retracting lifelines.
This is where things get a little more...
big stuff.
Intense.
Yeah.
I'm really curious about those cages.
Cages are interesting.
They always look so...
They do look...
Like, imposing, but they're there for a reason.
Yeah, they're there for a reason.
Right.
Okay, so when are...
So, OSHA has...
Very strict...
regulations on when these safety features are required and how they need to be constructed.
Okay, so for fixed ladders...
So for fixed ladders...
When do you need a cage?
You'll need cages.
Okay.
Wells.
Ladder safety devices or self-retracting lifelines.
Okay.
When the climb is less than 24 feet.
Okay.
But the top of the ladder is more than 24 feet.
Above a lower level.
Above a lower level.
Okay, so even if...
Yeah, so even if...
The ladder itself...
The ladder's short.
Is short. It's that potential fall distance.
The potential fall distance is significant.
Oh, right. Yeah. That triggers those extra precautions.
Exactly.
Okay. And then if the climb is...
Now, if the climb is 24 feet or longer.
Is 24 feet or longer...
Yeah.
Things get even more specific.
Okay.
You can choose ladder safety devices or self-retracting lifelines.
Okay.
Along with rest platforms.
Okay.
Every 150 feet.
All right.
Or you can go with a cage or, well, but then you need multiple ladder sections.
Right.
Each no longer than 50 feet.
Okay.
With landing platforms every 50 feet.
Okay. So... As the risk increases...
As the risk increases.
The safety measures increase. Exactly.
That makes sense.
It does.
Okay, so break down for me these safety features.
Break it down.
Like, what is a cage?
A cage.
Versus a, versus a ladder safety device?
Yeah.
Versus a lifeline?
So a cage completely encloses the ladder.
Okay.
And it extends at least 7 feet.
Okay.
Above the point of access.
All the way to the top.
So you can't just have like a little cage at the bottom.
Bottom to go all the way to the top.
All the way to the top. Okay.
It needs to be at least 27 inches wide.
27 inches wide. Okay.
And have horizontal bands.
Okay.
Spaced no more than 4 feet apart.
Okay, so it's like a
sturdy
enclosed vertical tunnel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about the bottom?
The bottom of the cage needs to flare out.
Okay.
At least 4 inches.
Okay.
to make it easier to enter.
So you're not just like banging your shins.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to be banging your shins as you're getting in.
Okay, so that's a cage.
That's a cage.
What's a well?
No, a well is similar to a cage.
Okay.
But it's more of a partial enclosure.
Okay.
So it needs to be at least 30 inches wide.
30 inches wide.
Okay. Yeah. And extend outward at least 27 inches from the center line of the rungs.
So still a barrier.
Still a barrier.
But not a complete enclosure.
Not a complete enclosure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about ladder safety devices?
Ladder safety devices, those are a different approach altogether.
How so?
These are systems that are designed to catch a falling climber.
So like a harness.
Yeah, like a harness and a cable.
And a cable.
Yeah.
That runs along the ladder.
That runs along the ladder. Okay.
I see.
And it's kind of like a zip line, but for safety.
Yeah, kind of like a zip line, but for safety.
Right.
And the device needs to be able to withstand a drop test and activate quickly.
In the event of a fall.
To catch you.
Yeah, to catch you.
Yeah.
And limit that climber's descending velocity.
Yeah, that sounds like so especially important.
Especially for those long climbs.
Where you're going.
Where the consequences are much more severe.
Way up high, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and then finally we have...
And finally, self-retracting lifelines.
Self-retracting lifelines, okay.
These are similar to ladder safety devices.
Okay.
But they use a retractable lifeline.
Okay.
Instead of a fixed cable.
Instead of a fixed cable, okay.
Yeah.
So it's like a...
It's like a range of options.
Yeah, a range of options for fall protection.
Depending on the climb.
Mm-hmm.
And...
this specific work environment.
The work environment, okay.
Yeah.
This is so fascinating.
It's fascinating how much thought goes into all of this.
All these regulations.
Yeah.
It's really impressive.
It is.
And it's important to remember, right?
It is important to remember that all of these safety features.
Safety features need to be properly installed and maintained.
Right. You can't just...
Yeah, it's not a one-time setup.
Set it and forget it.
It's not a set it and forget it kind of thing. You got to stay on top of it.
Make sure
everything's
working.
In good working order.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so that's a great reminder.
Yeah.
Now let's transition to the practical side of things.
Practical side of things.
Which is ladder usage.
Ladder usage.
And safe practices.
Safe practices.
Because, we talk about all the...
You can have all the best regulations in the world.
And all the best.
The best equipment.
But if you're not using it safely...
If you don't know how to use it safely...
It's all for naught.
Yeah, it's not going to do you any good.
Yeah. So that's what we're going to...
That's what we're going to see.
Explore in the next part.
Yeah.
Explore in the next part.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about actually using these things.
Yeah. Putting this knowledge into practice.
Right. What are the
essential tips?
The essential tips.
For safe ladder use that you pulled from the video.
One of the first things they emphasize is the 3-foot extension rule.
Oh, the 3-foot rule?
Yeah, for portable ladders.
Okay. I remember learning about that, but refresh my memory.
Remind me.
What's the rule again?
So whenever using a portable ladder to access an upper landing surface, the side rails need to extend at least 3 feet.
3 feet?
Above that surface.
Okay.
So you're not just...
So you've got something to grab.
Stepping off onto the roof with nothing to hold on to.
Yeah. What if you're working in a tight space, though?
Yeah, that happens.
And you can't extend it 3 feet.
What do you do?
Are you just out of luck?
You're not necessarily out of luck. Okay. There are ways to compensate.
Yeah.
So if you can't get that 3-foot extension, the top of the ladder needs to be secured to something rigid.
Okay.
That won't deflect.
Okay.
And you need a grasping device.
Oh, okay.
Like a grab bar.
Okay.
To help people get on and off safely.
So there's options.
Yeah.
If you can't extend it.
There are options.
Yeah.
If you can't get that full extension.
Right.
But you still need to make sure.
You still need to make it safe.
It's safe.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. What other tips?
Yeah.
Did they give?
They talk about keeping those ladders clean.
Oh, yeah.
That's super important.
Cleanliness, yeah.
So oil, grease, blood, anything.
Anything that could cause a slip.
That could cause a slip.
Needs to be removed.
Needs to be removed.
Right.
It's easy to overlook those things.
Right.
But
yeah, you don't want a small oversight.
A little bit of grease too.
Leading to a big accident.
Lead to a big accident, yeah.
Yeah.
What about load capacity?
Load capacity.
That seems like another.
That's a big one.
Yeah, big one.
Every ladder
has
a specific load capacity.
Okay.
And it's crucial to use the right ladder.
Right. Tool for the job.
For the job.
Right.
Don't try to make a lightweight step ladder.
Right.
Work for a heavy-duty construction task.
Don't overload it.
Yeah, you're just asking for trouble.
Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster.
That's a recipe for disaster.
Okay. Let's talk about ladder angles.
Ladder angles, yeah.
I remember learning about this.
Yes.
The safe angle for using...
There's a specific...
non-self-supporting ladders.
Angle you want to use.
Can you remind me what it is?
So you want to position the ladder.
Okay.
So that the horizontal distance from the top support to the base is about 1/4 of the working length.
So if I have a 16-foot ladder, the base should be about 4 feet from the wall.
About 4 feet from the wall, exactly.
Okay.
And for job-made ladders with spliced side rails, you need an even wider base.
Okay.
About 1/8 of the working length.
Okay, so they need to be
a little further out.
Further out.
A little more stable.
Now, what about fixed ladders?
Fixed ladders.
Do they have angle requirements?
They do.
Okay.
Fixed ladders can't be installed at an angle greater than 90 degrees.
So basically straight up and down.
Straight up and down.
Yeah.
Or leaning slightly back.
Or leaning slightly back.
Never leaning forward.
Never leaning forward.
And
okay. That makes sense.
It does.
Okay. This might seem obvious.
Yeah.
But
it's worth emphasizing.
Yeah.
Always set up your ladder.
Okay.
On a stable and level surface.
Stable and level.
Yeah.
Okay.
If it's not level.
Right.
You need to secure it.
Okay.
To prevent it from...
Right. From tipping over.
Shifting or tipping over laxly.
Now, what about those slip-resistant feet?
Yeah, those slip-resistant feet. They can be helpful.
Yeah.
Especially on slick surfaces.
Yeah.
But they're not a substitute for properly placing and securing the ladder.
Okay, so it's...
Think of them as an extra layer of protection.
Yeah, and an extra layer...
Not a primary solution.
Not the primary solution, okay.
Yeah.
And then if you're setting up a ladder in a high traffic area...
Right, high traffic areas. Yeah. You need to take extra precautions.
Okay.
Either secure the ladder...
Right, so no one bumps into it.
To prevent someone from bumping into it. Or use a barricade.
Put a barricade around.
To keep people away.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. One thing that stood out to me was keeping the area around the top and bottom of the ladder clear.
Yeah,
think of it as a no-go zone.
Yeah, no-go zone.
Yeah.
No tripping hazards.
No tripping hazards.
Right.
Yeah.
And when setting up a non-self-supporting ladder, make sure the top is resting on both side rails equally.
Okay. So it's designed with a single support attachment.
Okay, so make sure it's balanced.
Make sure it's balanced.
Yeah. And then never move or extend a ladder.
Never move or extend a ladder.
While someone's on it.
While someone is on it.
Yeah, that seems like a bad idea.
That's just asking for trouble.
Asking for trouble.
Asking for trouble, yeah.
Yeah.
And then working around electrical equipment.
Right, if you're working around electrical equipment.
Make sure you've got the right ladder.
Make sure you're using a ladder.
Yeah.
With non-conductive side rails.
And non-conductive side rails. Okay. Yeah. All right. And then a couple quick tips.
Okay.
Specifically for step ladders. Never use the top step of a step ladder as a step.
Yeah, that's tempting.
Yeah.
But
it's tempting.
Don't do it.
But don't do it.
Okay.
It's not designed to support your weight.
Yeah, it's easy to forget about that.
It is.
When you're up there.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to reach something.
You're just trying to get the job done.
Right. Yeah.
And avoid climbing on the cross bracing on the back of a step ladder.
Okay.
Unless it's specifically designed for climbing on both the front and rear sections.
Okay. So no improvising.
No improvising.
With your ladder.
Don't use the ladder.
Yeah.
In ways it wasn't intended.
In ways it wasn't intended for. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So we've talked about.
But we've covered safe use.
A lot of ground.
Yeah, a lot of.
On safe ladder use.
Ground. But what about.
What about inspection?
Inspection.
And maintenance.
And maintenance.
That's another key part.
Yeah, because you can't just use a damaged ladder. You can't just assume.
Yeah.
That a ladder is safe.
Right.
Just because it looks okay.
So what do we need to do?
So you need to have regular inspections.
Regular inspections, okay.
Yeah.
And who does those inspections?
So a competent person needs to inspect ladders.
A competent person.
On a periodic basis, as well as after any event that could have caused damage.
So like if something fell on it.
If a heavy object fell on it. Or, if it was exposed to extreme weather.
Yeah, if it was left out in the rain for a month or something.
Or was involved in some kind of incident.
Right.
Yeah, anything like that.
Okay.
Triggers an inspection.
Okay. So we're looking for not just
the obvious.
Cracks or breaks.
Right, but also those subtle signs.
With
damage.
That might not be immediately apparent.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, and then if you find
a defective ladder. What happens?
It needs to be taken out of service.
Taken out of service immediately.
No exceptions.
No exceptions.
Okay.
You can...
Yeah, what's the procedure for that?
You can tag it.
Okay.
With a do not use label.
All right.
You can mark it clearly as defective.
Okay.
Or you can physically block it off.
So no one can use it.
To prevent anyone from using it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So multiple ways.
Multiple ways.
Yeah.
To make sure that damaged ladder doesn't end up back in someone's hands.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what about repairs?
Repairs?
Yeah. Can you just...
So any repairs.
Yeah. Any repair?
Need to restore the ladder
okay.
to its original design criteria.
Okay. So you can't just like slap some duct tape on it.
No duct tape allowed.
And call it good.
No quick fixes.
Yeah.
You got to do it right.
You got to do it right. Okay.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up.
Any
other nuggets of wisdom?
Yeah, nuggets of wisdom.
From the Safety One Source video. One final thought.
Yeah.
One final thought.
Even with all these regulations and precautions.
Yeah.
Common sense.
Common sense.
And vigilance.
Vigilance.
Are your most valuable tools.
Yeah.
Before you use any ladder.
Right.
Take a moment to assess the situation.
Yeah, take a minute.
Inspect the ladder.
Look at it.
And make sure.
Make sure it's safe.
You're using it safely.
Yeah. So regulations are important.
Regulations are important.
Yeah.
They provide a framework. But it's your awareness. Your judgment.
That really makes the difference.
That makes the difference. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's great advice.
Great.
And I would also encourage everyone to check out
the full video.
The full Safety One Source video.
Yeah.
If you want even more.
A deeper dive into those regulations. Absolutely.
Okay. And remember, now that you're armed.
Yes.
With all this information.
All this knowledge. Go out there. And be a champion. For ladder safety. Make sure your workplaces are safe.
Make those workplaces safe.
From the ground up. Yeah.
All right. Until next time, stay safe.
Stay safe.